Uh, all right. I see someone put a Nari in. Thank you. The bot isn't here right now because it's gone because the stream crashed. Thank you for the Nari. I really am gonna need this Nari because what the fuck do you mean that I'm having issues again? I am going to rip someone's fucking eyes out and twist their goddamn neck 200 times. This shouldn't fucking happening right now. Right fucking now. Not right when I fucking have any momentum. Every fucking time we have a little bit of good, something just fucking crashes on us, and I have no idea why. Nothing on my end. I don't know. Why couldn't it do it yesterday? No, it had to do it right now when we were doing so good. When I have any fucking positivity going on right now, that's when it fucking decides. That's when it decides to have a hissy fit. That's when it decides it takes too goddamn fucking long to do anything. Every fucking time. I can't help when this shit happens. I am going to crash out. Oh my fucking god. And now all the fucking momentum is gone. And now everything's fucked. And now we have to live with it. Why? Because I don't fucking know. I don't know. Nothing changed. It disconnects for 6 seconds, 1 second longer than it takes for YouTube to decide, oh, that's it. We're just going to cut the stream now. We're just going to cut it, even though you reconnected half a second later. So we have to redo the whole thing. I don't even care that it cuts out. I don't even care that it cuts out. It can cut out as long as it comes back in a few seconds. But no, it takes 6 seconds and 5 seconds is the limit. And 5 seconds is the limit, but not 6 seconds. Oh, that's too much. Oh, I'm sorry. We're gonna have to cut everything you're doing. We're gonna have to ruin all your momentum. Because of some bullshit that you don't even have fucking control over. Because nothing like this has ever happened in the 360, 70 fucking days you do it. But 2 fucking days before you have to do Kana 9. 1 fucking week before you have the biggest thing. And all of a sudden. Okay. So moving on from the Vanguard passive. Shoot Fracture is the effect that Outis inflicts. Shoot Fracture is the thing that she gets on her Clash wins. It also gets it on her base attack skills when she has Udjat as the passive has written here. So you see she gets this Shoot Fracture. And she also gets it on her Clash wins. So this is something that she's going to be inflicting permanently. Pretty much. If we read it, it is a unique type of sinking. For every X of the stack, she will take, the enemy will take more damage when hit by Sloth and Gloom. Now, this is already very similar to how Don Quixote's Shadow Mark works, but hers is a panic type. Right, so this is a panic type, this is not a panic type, this is just a buff that she inflicts. It's more like something like the La Mancha Land passive. The La Mancha Land Parade. Yeah, this is defense sinking unit. As you can see, at max stacks of this buff, maybe it's 10% or something, 10 stacks or something, or 20 probably. The target will gain Gloom Fragility, so more Gloom Fragility, and take Gloom damage equal to the sinking potency on self. You'll lose sinking count and then expire. So this is also familiar to the Deathrite Venom. It's a mixture of Deathrite Venom and a La Mancha Land Parade. So let's assume for the sake that this is maybe 20 stacks, because she inflicts so much of it. And this might be a plus 20% damage taken. Then you will gain Gloom Fragility at 20 stacks, just theoretically, and you will pop Gloom damage equal to sinking potency, so maybe like 40 sinking potency. Then this will expire. If a unit dies with this effect, however, you will transfer half of its stack to its allies or allies with the highest SP, so it transfers as well. A lot of these stacking effects also like to transfer, which is very nice. Also, this is the most important part of the move here. If there are no LCE identities on the field, the effect expires. So the thing about this part here with the effect that it expires, if Outis herself is not in the field, this effect just doesn't work. So that's really interesting. So if Outis dies or if Outis retreats for whatever reason, this buff will just expire, which is the first time something like this has happened. It is a unique buff that is strictly tied to Udjat Outis's existence.
We love you, bro. Stream bullshit ain't gonna stop us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm probably gonna get a noise complaint, but we'll deal with that later. Thank you. We're back. We're back. Thank you. So, yeah. So let's assume this is like 20, and maybe it's 10%. So this is like Sloth and Gloom. So this is both Tremor and Gloom. So you can use this in Tremor, but clearly it is specifically for Gloom Fragility. So we have Gloom Fragility here. It does sinking potency. So yeah, it's clearly meant to be sinking. It's even a unique sinking, but if you have Sloth, there you go. Now we move on to the most important thing here, which is the Blue Sand, which is a unique, this is a panic change to Blue Sand. So if we talk about the Blue Sand, first of all, the Blue Sand gimmick is on Clash Lose, you will gain sinking count, which is very nice. So gain sinking count on Clash Lose. So if you are targeting someone with this, that is how you affect sinking count. Now, the only other panic effect in the game that affects the sinking is Echoes of the Mana. Echoes of the Mana is when you inflict potency or count, there is a 50% chance that the enemy gains 1 sinking. So it's a different version of that, or different variation of that. Instead, now it's a Clash focus. So honestly, this is much more, I would say, reliable, consistently. Less, I would say reliable, but more consistent. Especially because we don't know how much you get. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3. It's probably around 2, I wouldn't be surprised. Units with SP, they will change their pack type to Blue Sand. However, if you are, the difference between this and Echoes of the Mana is units without SP will specifically lose min and max speed. So that is what they will get as well. So if you have SP, you get the panic type. A unit without SP, you lose min and max speed. So it actually makes them slower. Obviously, the turn end will reduce. It is not cumulative, so you will refresh the value. And this will obviously apply to units without SP conditionals. The effects of the panic are low morale, you will lose clash power and min-max speed, and at panic you will lose clash power and lose min-max speed. Maybe -1, 1, 1, or -2, 2, 2, something like that. Then the last buff that Outis has is the LCA Fracture Round, which is a unique ammo, spent by certain skills, and some attacks cancel if lacking ammo. So that's the most important part here. As you can see, this bit here where it says some attacks will cancel, so theoretically, you can actually miss out on the attacks. However, that's not really a big issue, because say you miss out on the coin, the attacks will cancel, but excuse me. The attacks will cancel, but the attacks will still go off. So you'll still get the second hit going off here, and you'll just reload at the end of the turn. So, and that is the major stuff about Outis. The biggest things to note is about her blue sand gimmick and also the shoot. So these 3 buffs here are insanely good. The Udjat obviously is insane for Outis. How much ammo do we get? We have no idea. Most likely maybe 12 or something, or 15 is most likely a good estimate. Now we move on to the blue sand here. So the blue sand is very strong. It is a contender for Echoes of the Manor. I mean, min-max speed is good, and then Clash Loose. So it depends on... A lot of syncing identities have Clash Win conditionals. Like, a lot of the Butler identities have Clash Win. For example, like Butler Faust. Edgar has Clash Win. I don't think Wild Hunt has Clash Win. I might be wrong. But you can pair this up with them, so that is pretty good. This Shoot Fracture is going to be very consistently strong, and it's going to pretty much spread to everyone, which is very nice. Then you have the Udjat, which again makes her the strongest, strongest just turn 0 identity in the game. Does have Clash Win? There you go, so Wild Hunt has Clash Win. This will make her the strongest turn 0 identity in the game, which is very good. Moving on to Index Faust now, we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about Index Faust. So Index Faust is very unique compared to Outis. Index Faust has a lot of text, and I mean a lot of text. Like, before we even get into it, look at all of this words. She has 3 passives, which is a bunch of words. And then her support passive has even more words. So we'll start talking about Index Faust. So the first thing about Index Faust is that she is a mono slash, and she has the same sin affinities as Outis, but in different orders. So she has Sloth, Pride, and Gloom. We also knew this from her teaser. It's very nice. The first coin is a 2 coin. Also, she is a poise sinking unit. So yes, we did guess correctly. It was in fact poise. If we start reading the skills, which is first of all, the unerringly as the prescript demands. The most important part is if a skill is marked with a mark of the prescript, which there are a lot of terms here, so you're going to have to, forgive me here. Mark of the prescript, you will gain clash power and deal more damage. You will gain coin power for every poise on self and sinking on target, and on use you will gain poise count. She will gain poise potency, and then the second coin will inflict sinking potency, and on crit inflict even more sinking potency. Very simple skill 1. The most important thing is obviously she will gain both poise and count and poise. Maybe 2-2, most likely 2-2 or 2-1. We move on to skill 2, which is the Undertake the Prescript. Again, Undertake. If the skill is marked with Mark of the Prescript, by the way, is a 3 coin pride. If the skill is marked with Mark of the Prescript, she will gain final power. Gain coin power for every poise on self and sinking on target. On use, she will gain poise and poise count. And then on hit, she will gain poise. So first coin gains poise. She does gain a bunch of poise and poise count. She also gains poise. Impenetrable power group, maybe. It's very funny though. The second coin will inflict normal sinking potency, and the third coin will inflict both sinking potency, and on crit, it will inflict sinking count. So already you may notice that this Faust is much more focused on potency infliction than count. She's not very count focused. She is more sinking focused. She's also more of a poise, poise unit just in general overall. This is very simple, but now we're going on to the big one, which is the skill 3, which was a 3 coin gloom. As the prescript demands, you will be eliminated. 3 coin. We have, if the skill is marked with Mark of the Prescript, you will gain final power and deal more damage on critical hits. You will gain coin power for poise on self and sinking on target. Then we have this a new effect here, which is called Grace of the Prescript. We have at combat start, At X, Grace of the Prescript, you will convert all of your coins to unbreakable and deal more damage. This is very awesome. Then you have on use here, gain poise count, which is very nice. You also have an addendum to the on use here, which is gain poise count equal to the Grace of the Prescript divided by X. So this on use effect gives you a lot of count and a lot of poise potency. Equally so, the first coin will give you even more poise potency. The second one does simply sinking infliction. And then the third coin will deal more damage for every Grace of the Prescript. And then at certain Grace of the Prescript, you deal even more damage, inflict sinking potency, and inflict bounce on crit. Very simple so far. Very, very simple, but effective. Now you might notice that the skill 3 is not as super fancy as you expected it to be. That is because the fanciness comes from whatever this Grace of the Prescript is, and specifically what the actual prescripts are. But something that is very interesting here is she has a 3 coin counter. She has a 3 coin gloom counter, which is gain final power and deal more damage for every Grace of the Prescript. It is also called Prescript Granted, Prescript Woven Fabric. On combat start, she will gain shield equal to a percentage of her max HP. However, reduce shield gain for every Karmic consequence, and at a certain Karmic consequence, it does not gain shield. We will come back to this Karmic consequence in a second. More importantly, she will gain poise potency and inflict sinking. Very simple. So a very simple counter, nothing very special about it, but it does show up this strange thing called Karmic Consequence. We will talk about Karmic Consequence when it is time. And also, 3 coin. I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know why it is 3 coin, but it's very funny that it's 3 coin. I actually think I know why it's 3 coin, but we'll talk about that once we actually review the kit. So we're going to start talking about her 3 passives now. Okay? We have Prescript delivered on paper slips. Obviously, this is paper slip, and she is a paper slip version of an index. Whatever that means. We have Turn Start. Gain Prescript paper slip 1, 2, 3, and 4 based on the Grace of the Prescript. You will inflict the Prescript target to a random enemy, or in focus encounter, the part. You will also apply Mark of the Prescript to your base attack skills in this unit's dashboard. If you have a certain Grace of the Prescript, the effect above prioritizes skill 3. All of the effects above and Prescript execution checks do not trigger when this unit is staggered, immobilized, in panic, or corrosion. Now, what the hell does this all mean? First things first, this is most likely a non-sin passive. When the turn starts, when the combat starts, okay, you will gain level 1 paper slip. All right, you will have level 1 paper slip because you have no graces. Then a target will be chosen, and your own skill will be buffed. It is then up to you to make sure to target the enemy that is buffed, and then hit the enemy or hit an enemy with your buffed skill. This will come into play more once we understand the kit. Speaking of, we have the Will of the Prescript. Turn end. If the Prescript was executed this turn, heal SP and gain a Grace of the Prescript. When executing the Prescript, if the main target has the Prescript target, you will heal even more SP and gain even more Grace of the Prescript. Obviously, we don't know what the Prescript is. We will get to that in a second. However, this is the biggest part of the... Well, this is one of the most shocking parts of the kit. Turn end, if the Prescript was not executed this turn, you will gain Karmic Consequences. However, at a certain Grace of the Prescript, you do not gain the Karmic Consequences. Equally so, if this unit attempted to execute the Prescript at combat start, but could not target the enemy during the turn, you do not gain Karmic Consequence. TLDR, what this means is if Faust and Heathcliff are attacking Meryl, and Meryl is the target of Faust's Prescript, if Heathcliff kills Meryl while Faust is targeting Meryl, Faust does not fail the Prescript, because the target could not be hit after the turn. However, if Heathcliff targeted Meryl and Meryl dodged, and then Faust was attacked by Meryl was attacked by Faust, and Faust could not hit them due to the dodge, that would count as failing the Prescript if the Prescript was attacking the enemy. We move on to the third passive. This will also come back to us. We will go back to this. We will come back to this Prescript passive in the second section. We have a Proselyte Blade, the third and final passive. Deal more damage with skills marked with the mark of Prescript for every Grace of Prescript on self. At Y, you will deal more damage with base attack skills. On hit with a base attack skill against enemies with the target effect, you will gain poise potency and inflict sinking. This will also increase the number of times the effect can trigger for every Grace of Prescript. And then last, at a certain Grace of Prescript, your base skills will just inflict more potency and gain more poise. So, TLDR, the more the more people of the mark you hit, the better you are. When you hit people with your mark, you get a buff. When you hit your target, which is chosen from your turn start, you will get a buff. These buffs are increased by completing prescripts, which are called Grace of the Prescript. And at a certain level of Grace of the Prescript, you will just be flat out stronger. We also have a very interesting support passive, which is As the Prescript Orders. This effect applies to the identity with the earliest deployment order. And you might note, prioritizes the index identities with a plural. Confirming that yes, there will be more index identities this season. Not just one or two, multiple index identities. Combat start. If this unit's leftmost skill on the dashboard and other allies are targeting the same enemy slot, that slot will deal a percentage more damage for every other ally targeting the same slot, excluding this own unit. This will apply when the unit and ally both use a base attack skill to main target the enemy. TLDR. If you have Heathcliff, Mersault, and Ryoshu targeting the same unit, let's say Heathcliff is the main target. Heathcliff will receive a 5% damage boost from Mersault and Ryoshu, because they are all attacking the same target. This could be very strong, because it is just extra damage on that target for that whole skill. So we will see how it goes. We will see. That was the support passive and the main passives. We're now going to be talking about probably the biggest thing about the kit, which is actually the Prescript itself. Now, the Prescript works much like Ishmael's Hanafuda ID, which we kind of correctly guessed that the Hanafuda Ishmael gambling gimmick was sort of a, work in progress on how the Prescript would work. So let's see how a Prescript works. Here we have the Prescript. You will receive the Prescript paper slip under specific conditions. The first Prescript, which is the paper slip 1. Use a skill marked with the mark of the Prescript or hit a target with a marked skill. If you fulfill this conditional by using a skill marked with the mark of the Prescript or hitting a target with said marked skill, at turn start, you will receive this Prescript under X and Y Grace of Prescript effects. At maximum stacks, however, you can only reach a certain stack with this Prescript. So, you will receive a Prescript at, for example, Grace of the Prescript 1. Once you hit Grace of the Prescript 1, you will receive a paper slip. You will no longer be able to go above 1 until you fulfill the Prescript. say you fulfill the Prescript, you will then gain the Grace of Prescript and be allowed to move on to Grace of the Prescript 2, which then you will receive the second version of the Prescript. Hit a target with a skill marked with the mark of the Prescript. Now you might be like, that is the same thing. No, you have to hit them this time, not just use the skill. You see it's getting a little bit harder. The first one is use or hit. The second one is you have to hit them. Upon doing this, again, you will gain X Grace of the Prescript to this effect, and the maximal stack will increase. Once you do this, the limit will increase to this theoretical 3, and you will be allowed to access the third Prescript. The third Prescript is hit a target with Ego Awakening skill or a skill 3 marked with mark of the Prescript. Now it's getting a little bit harder. To access the next and final one, you have to hit a target with an Ego or a Ascended skill 3. Now, in the passive, it specifically states that the higher level you reach, the more likely it is for your mark of the Prescript to affect skill 3s, as you can see here. Apply mark of the Prescript to base attack skills. At X Grace of the Prescript, the effect above will prioritize skill 3s. Then, the final Prescript, which I argue is probably the funniest Prescript of them all. Eliminate all enemies before the next Prescript arrives. Upon doing so, you will reach the maximum level of Grace of the Prescript by killing all enemies by any means necessary. Any means necessary. Kill all of them. Which is quite funny. There is no next Prescript. It is done. Here you have the Mark of the Prescript buff, which will apply the Mark of Prescript to a base skill on this unit dashboard. That's how you get it. It's pretty much a timer. You have the Prescript target, which will take more damage from index units. The effect is applied to a single target every turn, regardless of the number of index units deployed. Another massive teaser that we will be getting more index units. More damage from the index units, the regardless of number of index users deployed. Now, what does this Grace of Prescript do? It gives you permanent offense level, which is quite nice. But then we have Karmic Consequence. Turn start, you will gain defense level down for every stack, and you will gain fragile for every Y stack. You will note that this Karmic Consequence is a pure downside. There is no positive upside to getting this Karmic Consequence. Upon failing these prescripts, you will receive Karmic Consequence. Now, I think in gameplay, this is not going to be that much of a big deal once you actually start understanding how the character works. However, it's quite funny that she has one of the only identities in the game with a straight up negative downside to her character. Not even Hanafuda Ishmael has that. Is that someone hanging? No, it's someone on a leash. It's an index on a leash. They're being karmed. So you'll notice, again, if we go back down here. However, yeah, you don't have to stress about this because at a certain level of Grace of the Prescript, you don't actually get that. So, yeah. And the only thing that Karmic Consequences actually affects is the counter, which will reduce the amount of shield you get. I think in hindsight, the ID is incredibly strong. And the fact that multiple IDs will have this, assuming multiple IDs will have the prescript function, maybe they might have different prescripts, or they might have the same prescript if it's all paperslip. They're most likely going to have all paperscript, and Yes, there is also Hexnail passive, so you might actually even want Karmic Consequences. There's nothing here saying the Karmic Consequences is removed, but it's assumed, you can assume that the Karmic Consequences is most likely removed at max stacks. But I don't know. The Deviat dying in the corner. Downside buff, I should say, or debuff. The Deviats just hurt themselves and leave. They don't actually give themselves a buff, a downside that hurts, like ruins their like fragile and defense level. But as you can see, that is Faust's kit. Now, Faust's kit is her actual skills are very simple. Obviously, the actual complexity comes from her kit. Now, I think on the surface, you look at this, and you might say that it doesn't seem that quite strong. But this is one of those instances where all of the tiny little gameplay elements in the back are actually affecting the ID. There are so many little mini like modifiers that you won't notice, that when the stars align for you and you set the mechanic up, you're going to notice that not only is she very strong, she's going to have such an insane potency application, very good poise, and pretty much is going to turn into a monster. But the only way you get that monster is by following the prescripts. So you will have to play a little bit of a game like her, like Hanafuda, but it is a much more complicated game than Hanafuda. Hanafuda just required you to use the skills. Here you have to use them, hit with marked skills, hit targets with egos or skill 3, ascendant skill 3s, and eliminate enemies. She also specifically buffs other index units. But this might be a global effect that all index units all index users have. The thing is, let's say she has a skill, Prescript 3, but you can't complete it. Use an ego. You have to hit with an ego awakening skill or use a skill 3. The only one that is, I would argue, the actual hardest is the fourth one. So here you could just use base ego, and that counts. Here you have to hit with a marked skill, so you have to choose one of your 2 skills. Here you just have to use anything. And then here you have to eliminate all the enemies. This is the one where if you get this, you're pretty much activated for the rest of the fight. By the way, it has to be an awakening skill, not a corrosion skill. This says hit a target with an awakening, so non-corrosion skill. So you can't corrode with her. Also, if you do corrode with her, you don't even get prescripts. All of the above effects and prescript executions do not trigger if you are staggered, immobilized, panicked, or corroded. It's just flavor when you meet practice. Yeah, you just have to reach 4. This is the reward. Once you've reached 4, there is no more prescript after that. Which is just very funny. And that's Faust. As you can see, very good. Quite strong. There is no next prescript. And there you go. That is Faust. Faust is a very simple kit-wise. Her kit is very simple, but I think she has so many minute little details added due to the prescript and her buffs and her thing, that she's going to end up being quite a monster. Not only that, but she's also going to buff all the other index users that come in. And once all the other index users come in, you're going to realize it's way, all of the benefits are going to benefit everyone in Tails, and it's going to be insane. Now, the question is this replacement for the Butler? So, I think the thing I can say is Butler Faust is very strong. But Butler Faust's only purpose in life is to inflict sinking count. She's not really a damage dealer, nor does she inflict any potency. So if you don't need to use Butler Faust, for instance, you don't want to use her for whatever reason, this will be a perfectly fine sinking unit. Remember, this is not sinking count focused. She does have sinking count, but sinking count is not her priority. Her priority is murder. This is murder. Pretty much. This is murder the ID, sinking the ID, but she's also seems to be quite a strong poise unit, especially with this poise passive here as well. As she gets more poise potency, more poise, she's going to have infinite crit, but the only thing that she really cares about critting with is her skills to inflict more sinking count. That's pretty much it. Outis. Now the argument is a little bit different for Outis, but there could be an argument to be made. As we've said, there are a lot of sinking units that actually have clash win conditionals. Now let me just tell you straight. I'm going to just tell you 100% straight. Echoes of the Mana is one of the strongest panic effects in the game. By that, it is one of the only 4 panic effects in the game. But Echoes of the Mana is one of the most insane panic effects in the game. Every time you inflict sinking, you are just rolling a 50% chance to inflict count on top of that, which is insane. Now, will this compete with Echoes of the Manor? Well, there are some differences for this. First of all, the thing about Outis's Blue Sand is that you need a clash win. You need a clash lose. So, I think in terms of consistency, this will be stronger than Echoes of the Manor. I think in terms of slapping the effect on a target and then hitting them, Echoes of the Manor probably bits better. But if you're, example, fighting Cassetti, we'll use Cassetti as an example. You are targeting Cassetti, or Lei Heng, right? Lei Heng would be a great example. You are fighting Cassetti or Lei Heng. It'll be much more effective for you to inflict Blue Sand because you are going to be clashing against 7 coin. 7 different skills. So, and each different skill is going to inflict sinking count. It's a lot more consistent than rolling a 50-50 because you are still rolling a 50-50 at the end of the day. But you also do get the benefit of getting some, min and max speed, which is nice. So I think it depends on your situation. What do you want? The Blue Sand is maybe a lot more better on single targets, and the Echoes of the Mana is much more better on all of the targets, which is actually kind of what the original purpose of Echoes of the Mana is, because fun fact, Echoes of the Mana spreads. If you are unaware about that, Echoes of the Mana actually spreads when you kill people with it. So yeah, Blue Sand doesn't spread. This is definitely much more intended for single targets, while Echoes of the Mana is much more intended for pretty much anything. So pick your poison. However, will this ID do more damage than Outis? Yeah, probably. Is this a butterfly or deluge unit? This is looking like a butterfly. Honestly, this is both. I actually think she's perfectly good on both. She has an insane amount of most likely a high amount of sinking count application. She does both Gloom and Sloth, which both affect the sinking and butterfly. I think she actually is literally perfect for both sinking and butterfly. So both for Spice Bush and butterfly. This is just, you can use it whenever you want. If you are running a team and you know